It took me just over an hour to drive from Atlanta to LJ. I couldn't help but admire my wife's determination, driving down this road every Saturday. Maybe we had good sex, or maybe it was more than just sex. I didn't know because I never asked her. I knew for a fact that Darlene had been seeing Clayton Mankey at his cabin in LJ for over 6 months. We were well known in Atlanta society thanks to my wife's interest in charity work. She insisted that we attend openings, banquets, and fundraisers for just about anything. This required not only my attention, but also my money. I loved my wife, but I had reached my limit. After the rather expensive weddings of our 2 daughters, I was hoping for a little rest. However, Darlene wanted more, so she began to seek satisfaction for her ego elsewhere. She found Clay Mankey at one of the fundraisers. I believed I knew about it from the first night, but I didn't confirm my suspicions until the following happened. If she tried to meet him in town, it would have been a disaster. She was too well known to sneak into a hotel unnoticed. Besides, she would never go to a motel or his apartment. The cabin was the perfect place for them. After a long drive, there was a single-lane dirt and gravel road that led about 2 miles through the mountains to a log and stone cabin. Clayton was very wealthy. He was a contractor specializing in large government projects. In addition to making money, he seemed to have a talent for investing or using money wisely. Most of the land between the paved road and the cabin belonged to Clayton. I'm sure he had plans for the future. I drove up to the cabin. I had one small thing to do, and I had to do it quickly. Using a small pair of wire cutters, I cut the telephone wires coming out of the box and leading into the house. I carefully tucked the ends of the wires into the holes so that it wouldn't be obvious that they had been cut. There was no cell phone reception near the house. Now there would be no landline either. 20 minutes later, I was back on the main road. The whole way there was cloudy and overcast. Darlene didn't ask where I was going when I left early in the morning. I knew she would be leaving in about an hour as usual. We never asked each other about things like that. I guess it was a sign that our relationship was deteriorating. Where Clayton's road turned, there was a gas station with a diner. Actually, it wasn't really a gas station, just a diner with a few pumps in front of the entrance. I got lucky and got a table by the window with a good view. About 30 minutes later, a full-size black Hummer pulled up. Clayton always liked to arrive in style. Gas prices didn't matter to him. 5 minutes later, Darlene pulled up in her Lexus GX 470, and then it started to rain. It wasn't a normal rain, but the kind that lasts all day and doesn't stop. I needed to get out of there fast before the road became impassable. I'm sure Clayton didn't care about dirty roads, but Darlene's Lexus wouldn't have handled them. At that moment, it didn't matter because they weren't going anywhere. What struck me about her meeting was its timing. We had a fundraiser for Brazilian 3-toed sloths tonight. I'm pretty sure that wasn't the reason she was traveling, but it was something just as frivolous. She had been planning and preparing for this for over 3 months, yet she still found time to leave on the day of the event to see her lover. I have to admit that she did a great job organizing the event. Even without her, everything would have gone well. My Outback wasn't as reliable as Clayton's Hummer or as elegant as Darlene's Lexus, but it would have gotten me where I needed to go if I hadn't messed around. I paid the bill and followed my wife and her lover into the mountains. It wasn't actually that high, but the road was damn winding. It's very difficult to build a road through mountains like that. You have to follow the contours of the land when possible, and that's not always easy. It started raining, and it didn't look like it was going to let up. I got halfway to the cabin and decided to stop where I could turn around. The park protected me from the rain, but by the time I got there, it was getting a little stuffy inside. Darlene and her lover had been in the cabin for about 30 minutes. I was pretty sure she was going to cut the visit short, so I got right down to business. It didn't take long, really. I just slashed the valves on both cars. They wouldn't be able to repair or replace the tires today. By the time the rain stopped, the roads would be in such a state that no normal tow truck driver would risk going there. Their only option would be to walk to a diner and find another way to get around from there. Of course, they wouldn't even realize what was happening until they finished making love. They had no landline or cell phone. If he had internet, it was probably connected through the phone line. Of course, he could have had a satellite phone. But I couldn't take that chance. I was ready. It was still raining. 20 minutes later, I was on Highway 575, heading back to Atlanta. There was no serious reason for my escape. I just felt angry. Darlene and I had been together since college. I moved to Atlanta from Pennsylvania to work for one of the most prestigious accounting firms in the state. In less than 10 years, I started my own accounting firm specializing in the food service industry. We did bookkeeping, payroll, taxes, and even retirement plans. Some of our clients went national, and we went with them. Our lifestyle changed as my income grew. Sometimes I felt like I couldn't keep up. Everything was fine until Darlene decided to spice up her sex life. Of course, I could have been wrong. Clayton was richer than me. I didn't know for sure if Darlene was interested in his money or his body. I have to admit he was better looking and in better shape than me. I guess working on a construction site helps you stay in shape better than sitting at a desk all day. That son of a bitch even had more hair than I did. I hadn't gotten to the point where I needed to comb my hair back, but it wasn't as thick as it used to be. I didn't care why she did it, I just wanted her to cancel it. Tonight promised to be a great night. I was looking forward to seeing if Darlene would show up. If she came before everything was over, she would be confused and upset. Like I said, I had no reason to do what I did. I reached Interstate 75, and it was still raining. I was going to leave Atlanta right after the party. All the arrangements had been made in advance. I had sold my business 2 months ago for cash and 20% of the profits for 20 years. 3 weeks ago, Darlene signed the papers to sell the house to a close friend of mine. He knew about my situation and was more than willing to resolve any issues that might arise from the sale. He paid me $1 million in cash for the house, which was worth 3 times that amount. Darlene believed she was signing papers to refinance the mortgage. There was no mortgage. The rest of the preparations consisted of closing accounts, credit cards, investments, and retirement policies. There were a few collectibles in the house that I easily sold in advance. I planned to take Darlene's jewelry with me when I left. I wasn't going to leave her things I had bought for $500,000. Clayton Mankey was another problem. In addition to his wealth, he had good connections at both the local and state levels. Although he wasn't my client, it wasn't difficult for me to gather information about my opponent. I assigned a small group of my best employees to gather everything they could about his businesses. It was standard practice for Clayton to win bids for government projects and skim off the top. The big problem was that the books didn't add up. The school district project was listed in their reports as worth $3 million, but Mankey Enterprises claimed it had only received $2 million. Clayton easily made $1 million, minus a few kickbacks. No one ever checked the 2 figures. I couldn't hurt Clayton's relationship with state or local authorities because they were just as guilty as he was. However, the tax authorities took a keen interest in the case. Not only did they plan to ruin poor Clayton, but they also intended to pay me a reward. At that point, I wasn't sure I would get it. But maybe, with a little luck, everything would work out. When I got to Atlanta, the rain got heavier. I figured it would be another 2 or 3 hours before Darlene and Clay discovered their problem. I needed to get ready for the party. When I got home, the caterers and other partygoers were busy. Darlene was planning to invite over 200 people. Fortunately, the house was large enough to accommodate everyone. I just smiled and waved to the workers. They were professionals, and I wasn't going to get in their way. I took a long, hot shower and started gathering the last few things. Darlene would miss her jewelry. I also cleaned out my personal safe. I was glad I had a small collection of gold coins. The Subaru was in the garage, so at least I didn't have to get wet loading it. Long plastic mats were laid out throughout the house. It was late in the day, but with no sun and plenty of clouds, it felt like night had fallen. It started to rain. By 5 o'clock, I was dressed in my tuxedo for the evening. My daughters and their husbands arrived early to make sure everything was going according to plan. They both asked where their mother was, and I just shrugged. The first guests began to arrive as my phone rang. It was my loving wife. "Robert, I'm so sorry, but I'm having car trouble. I'll come home as soon as I can. Is everything okay?" "Where are you?" "I'll come get you." No, stay with the guests. I'll try to get there as soon as I can. I'm so sorry." "What happened to the car? That damn thing cost me over $50,000. I expect it to be reliable for that kind of money." "I've already arranged for the repair shop to take care of everything. You don't have to worry about a thing." "Damn it, Darlene, where the hell are you?" "Robert, calm down. It doesn't matter. What matters is that our guests are taken care of." She wasn't going to tell me where she was or who she was with. "Are you alone? Or is someone with you?" "I'm alone, but I'm fine. For God's sake, stop worrying about me. I'll be fine." Both of my daughters breathed a sigh of relief when they heard their mother was okay. I smiled, imagining her walking from the cottage to the highway in the rain and mud. That rain was sent by an angel from heaven. Darlene must have been miserable. She was wet, dirty, and tired. About an hour later, the phone rang again. I excused myself from the guests and went into the hall. "Robert, what the hell is going on? I gave the rental agent 3 different credit cards and they all got declined. I can't rent a car with a credit card." "Why don't you just call a taxi?" There was an exasperated sigh on the other end of the line. "It's too far for a taxi. I don't need any extra hassle, Robert. I just want to know what to do with my credit card." "I probably won't be able to sort this out until Monday. Why don't you go home with Clayton?" There was silence on the line. I couldn't even hear her breathing. I waited a few seconds, then heard her hang up. She never answered my question. The evening went pretty well. The girls left because of the babysitter. When Darlene came in, there were still about 10 guests left in the house. She looked terrible. Her hair was as dirty and disheveled as her clothes. The rain had washed most of the dirt away, but reddish-brown stains remained. I stood there with a beer in my hand and smiled. It was my first drink of the evening. From the way she walked, it looked like she had broken a heel on one of her shoes. She kicked off her shoes and grabbed a drink from one of the trays on the buffet table. "You did this, didn't you, you bastard?" I took a big gulp of beer and smiled. "You'll pay for this, I swear. You'll pay." The cooks were busy cleaning up as the last guests left. They looked at her, but strangely, no one said anything. "I'm glad you're back safe and sound. I stayed to tell you I'm leaving. I couldn't leave without knowing you were okay." "What do you mean, leaving?" "Just leaving. I sold the business, sold the house, and closed all the accounts. That's why your credit cards don't work." Darlene threw her glass across the room. It smashed against the wall, hitting the cleaners. "You stupid son of a bitch. Remember, half of everything belongs to me. I won't let you cheat me. I worked just as hard as you did to get what we have. I earned half, and I'm going to get it." I finished my beer and carefully placed the empty can on the table. "Fine, honey. You'll get half of everything, but only if I divorce you. I'm not going to do that. Do whatever you want." I had to walk 2 hours in the rain and mud to get to the road. 2 damn hours, and all because of you. "What were you doing there, honey? Why did you go to Elijah to spend the day with Clayton Mankey when you could have just slept with him here in the house? God knows I wouldn't have cared." "You're a bastard. A heartless, worthless bastard. I hate you." "Well, I'm glad we got that out of the way. I have a flight at midnight. If you need to get in touch with me, call me at..." "Sorry. I just remembered you have nowhere to call. I suggest you fire the house staff because you won't be able to pay them. By the way, the couple who bought this house is moving in at the end of next week. You'd better find yourself a place to live. I don't recommend going to Clayton. He won't be staying here long. Maybe one of your daughters will take you in." "What do you mean Clayton won't be staying here long? Why would he leave? He's on top of the world. I smiled as I walked out the door for the last time. My accountants and lawyers made sure that all my taxes were determined and paid. As far as the government was concerned, I was leaving the company with a clean slate. All I cared about at that moment was getting as far away from Darlene as possible. It wasn't that I didn't have enough to share with her, it was that I didn't want to share with her. I had a lot of options, and I decided not to decide. I made a list of places that interested me and decided it would be wise to check them all out. A year in each place would be enough. I decided to start with Belize and move on from there. After 5 years, I would have a pretty good idea of where I wanted to live. I had a few people who were more than willing to keep me informed about what was going on at home. 2 weeks after arriving in Ambergris Cay, I made a phone call. The first was to my eldest daughter, Grace. "Dad, Mom is furious. Bet and I tried to talk to her, but she refuses to explain anything. The only thing we could get out of her is that you stole all her jewelry and left her without any money or credit cards. She hasn't been home in the last few days. We don't know where she is." "Did you try calling her?" "I believe her cell phone is turned off." "Oh, right. I forgot. The utilities were cut off at the house, so she's probably not there. She might be with Clayton." "Who the hell is Clayton?" "Oh, sorry. I don't think she told you. Clayton Monkey is your mother's lover." "Clayton Monkey? He's been all over the news for the last few weeks. He's wanted by the FBI and someone else. He was arrested once, but he got out on bail and disappeared. What's Mom doing with him?" "I don't know. Either sex or money. If he's gone, she's probably with him." I promised Grace I'd stay in touch with her and Bet. I made 4 more calls, and the information was the same. No one knew where Darlene was, and no one knew where Clayton was. It was obvious they were together. Clayton could walk away from the business and still have enough money to live on for the rest of his life. Of course, considering how his business was going, that would be impossible in the good old USA. I had a restless night. I had 2 dives scheduled for the next day. I needed something to occupy my time, and scuba diving was perfect. It happened right after the first dive. It started raining, not just rain, but a real Chattanooga downpour. We sat in the boat and waited for it to pass. All I could think about was the house in Ellijay. It was a bad sign. The second dive was a little shorter than the first. When we returned to shore, the rain was still coming down. The dock was a few minutes' walk from my condo. I quickly ate a bowl of clam chowder before heading back. The rain continued to fall. It seemed like Hector was always on duty. He was the doorman at our condo. I wasn't sure, but I believed he worked exclusively for tips. I didn't mind giving him a little something if he did something that deserved it. We got along well. "Mr. Terrell, did you miss your second dive today?" "No, but tomorrow is another day." "Mr. Terrell, you had 2 visitors this morning. I told them you would be back later, closer to evening. I think they will still come by." That was strange. No one knew I was here, and I hadn't made any friends since I arrived. "Did you find out their names, Hector?" "No, sir, but I did something better." Hector took out his cell phone and pressed a few buttons. It was an excellent photograph. They weren't posing, and they clearly didn't know he had taken their picture. Clayton was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and Darlene had a large, soft straw hat on. My wife and her lover had found me and come to visit. It's amazing what a man can do with enough money. I slipped Hector a 20 and headed for my room. I didn't need many things, so I had time to call the U.S. Embassy. They confirmed that they were indeed interested in Mr. Monkey. He was wanted not only by the tax authorities, but also by the passport office, which wanted to know what documents he was using. He was forced to surrender his passport in order to be released on bail. 20 minutes later, I was on my way to San Pedro Airport. The small airport suited me better. The road was rainy. American officials were waiting for Clayton at the apartment. Extradition to the U.S. was inevitable. They weren't interested in Darlene, so I assumed they would just leave her without any money or credit cards. I wondered if she had a return ticket. 2 days later, I settled into my new villa in Phuket. I was afraid that without a job or family, my life would be boring. I was wrong. It wasn't long before Darlene and Clayton found out where I had gone. This time I was ready. I was also on my guard. I had planned to take a walk on the beach to watch the sunset, but I had to change my plans. It started raining. It was a Chattahoochee rain. It was sent by an angel. I hoped Clayton was as smart as he seemed. I wondered why he decided to take revenge when he could have just left. The next few years would be fun. I wanted to have dinner, but I couldn't. It started raining.